This is the United States. You probably know the United States. This is Florida. You definitely know Florida. But here is Alachua County. I would doubt you know Alachua County. You probably know a lot of things in Alachua County. There's Gainesville, there's the University of Florida, there's the Gators football team, and that's also where Gatorade is from. And there's also about 284,000 people. But Alachua County itself is kind of boring. Their Google Trends have actually been decreasing over time. Like most counties, or I would assume, Alachua County has a school district. And it sucks. This video isn't being made for any kind of journalistic integrity. It's not being made because I feel some noble feeling to root out evil, to do anything like that, to expose corruption. It's being done because for the past year now, I have felt this demon sitting on my shoulder, pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to make this fucking thing. And everyone around me has been telling me to just drop it, to just give up, that it's not worth it, that this is taxing on me, it's making my mental health worse, it's draining me of my energy, it's actively, day by day, making me worse, distracting me from what really matters. And yet, like a cop in a fucking noir movie who was thrown off the case, I'm still pursuing it. Still that dog chasing his tail in the middle of traffic. So this is purely being made to get the demon off my fucking shoulder. Or in other words, to get the chip off my shoulder or chest or whatever the hell that phrase is. So that I don't feel plagued by this anymore. So that I am not bogged down by this need to make this fine piece of art that is a perfect expose. No, it's not going to be. I don't have the materials to make it that. And frankly, I think I'm too emotionally intertwined with this all to be able to have a level head, to be able to straightforwardly put together something that is beautiful. I don't think I can do that. So I'm just going to get something out. And if it's shit, it's shit. But at least I said my side of the story. At least I said all that I felt there needed to be said. And maybe it's not. But that is out of my hands. Alachua County, they have 21 elementary schools. Alachua, Archer, Childs, Foster, Glen Springs, Hidden Oak, Idlewild, Irby, Lake Forest, Littlewood, Meadowbrook, Metcalf, Newberry, Norton, Parker, Rawlings, Shell, Talbot, Terwilliger, Wiles, and Williams. They have one school that does elementary and middle, which is the High Springs community, and they have a total of 11,830 kids in elementary schools. Now, they also have 9 middle schools: Bishop, Fort Clark, Knapaha, Lincoln, Mebane, Oakview, and Westwood. And there's a total of 5,662 middle school students. There's also one school that does middle and high school, which is Hawthorne. And then there's 6 high schools: Buchholz, Eastside, Gainesville, Newberry, Lofton, which is kind of weird, and Santa Fe. And there's a total of 7,759 high school students. They also have an e-school and 2 learning centers. But anyway, there's a total of 30,384 students. They have a total budget of $315 million. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's August 10th, 2021. It is my first day back to school since COVID. In the 2020 to 2021 school year, the school system was high flex, meaning that you could choose to either attend in person or you could attend the school digitally through Zoom classes in something called Digital Academy. I did Digital Academy, and I fucking loved it. Everyone hated it. It was nearly universally hated. People struggled the most academically, they struggled socially. It was across the board, people did not like it. I loved it. It was amazing. People struggled with their grades, but I got straight A's and got 2 5s on both my AP tests. People struggled socially, but hey, I had a girlfriend. People couldn't focus, but to be honest, neither could I. But it was just the ability to multitask was amazing for me, which digital really provided. My flavor of neurodivergency makes it so that if I am multitasking, I am able to focus. And so I could anytime I was in class and I was bored or it was going over the answers to a test that I already got 100 on, I could just sit there and play Animal Crossing at the same time and no one would be any wiser. During freshman year, I would go bonkers every single day as I felt like I was tied down doing something that I couldn't focus on, classwork that I didn't care about or I already did well on and everything, and I would time it on my stopwatch every single day. But now I can multitask. But it's August 2021. I was back in person and I suffered a lot. I had to, in person, do a class on computers that I easily could have done digitally, a marine biology class with a teacher who ended up grooming a student, an APUSH class where half of the class was like super conservative, an AP English language class with a teacher who would later on call me a narcissist publicly, a TV production class which was kind of boring and no one seemed to really care about, and then an AP calculus class where I was learning everything 2 times faster than everyone else. It's not like my brain was going particularly fast for me, it's just its normal speed was way too fast. I had a therapist appointment that first day of school, right afterwards coincidentally, and I remember talking and crying about how fucking horrible it was for me. How unbearable it felt. I felt vulnerable. I felt confined at the same time. I felt like I couldn't focus. I felt like I was going nuts. I was considering even doing the weird Alachua e-school that they had. But I kept going. And eventually it got better. And hey, this TV production class is actually kind of cool.
All right, I'm out here at Best Buy. And I'm here to tell you that there's jobs here. Isn't that crazy?
Hey,
there's
did
a
you
lot
just
of
see
jobs.
that news
There's
program?
jobs
That was
at
kind of
Best
crazy.
Buy. If you're
You know what else is
16, there's
crazy?
jobs at
You can be
Walmart.
part
If
of
you're
that news
17,
program.
guess
Wait,
what? There's
what?
jobs at
I know,
Subway.
right?
Go to any of those places.
You
If
can
you
join
need
class.
money, go
Join
to one of them.
class.
Get some
Be on
money.
the news program.
Work there.
Do all the
We're in a
news
job
things.
crisis. Get
You
some
can do
money.
it.
Get
Do it
yourself
by
some money.
emailing.
Get them money.
Very quickly, I became absorbed by TV production. Or maybe TV production was absorbed by me. It's not like there was some massive violent upheaval that I did of pushing back and stealing the throne from anyone. It was just, I took initiative. We need someone to edit together these few clips that we have from this first day. No one knows how to edit. All right, well, I know how to edit. Does really no one else know how to edit? We need someone to go through this list of things that we maybe have to announce, but maybe don't, and figure out what needs to be said. All right, I can do that. That's pretty easy. We have this old teleprompter that's kind of broken and no one knows how to work it. All right, well, I can try to fix it. Do you know how to run it? Yep, I know. I figured it out. And I think I'm also the only person here who knows how to run it. After only a few months, I was nearly every step of the TV production process. I was the engine that the whole morning news program ran on. I knew the login to the email that the morning news was on, which was the email for the high school, like the official high school email. And I still have that email login. It still works. The only thing I wasn't during it was on camera, because I knew how to run all the tech and not really anyone else did. So I was doing all of that while having some people be anchors every single day. Really, the only times I was on camera was for the extra segments I did. Pretty much everyone in TV production would just come in and do what was necessary, what was asked for them, what was important to do for the day. I was the one exception. I would frequently have ideas for things outside of the class that I would then go and work on completely independently and then just add to the morning news program. This could be an ad for people to join the class. Could be a segment where I list off all the different places in town that have jobs available for kids our age. It could be dry and sarcastically explaining how to go to school like an airplane safety video. Or a segment where I'm playing a farmer who goes through a whole field and while doing so talks about the importance of wearing a mask. A vloggy kind of thing where I go to a football game and record and make jokes on pretty much everything other than the actual football, and a lot more. What really solidified it was the Jake Show. During the fall, there was a stint where something like 5 days of school ended up being canceled because midway through the day, bomb threats were called in. As a result, for some of the days, we weren't able to finish recording or record at all. But news still needed to be put out. What is it? The spice must flow. So what I would do is I would entirely by myself take it upon myself to come back to my house and record it solely. Me reading off all the news with a cardboard sign saying The Jake Show and a little tongue-in-cheeky making jokes about the fact that there were a bunch of bomb threats. And I would record it right here in this same room with this same green screen, probably the same tripod. I did it very much in my own style. Dry, awkward, sarcastic. It didn't feel that crazy to me. It was just doing what I thought needed to get done. But I think looking back, that really solidified that I was the one running things. Or at least the one holding everything together. And I was okay with that. Because for me, it felt like if I put all this work, this hard, menial, repetitive, boring work as I had to put in day to day for the morning announcements of just saying bullshit, I felt like I was rewarded in exchange with creative freedom to do relatively whatever I wanted with all my little extra segments. So I was happy with it. It was all kind of weird, quite weird, but really fun. I would have people stop me asking for photos. Hell, what is it? Yeah, it might be my channel icon here or on some fucking platforms, at least it used to be, was one of those photos that someone took with me, posted to Snapchat, and then a friend of mine screenshotted it and sent it to me. People would say, "Hey, are you Jake from The Jake Show?" It was surreal. Let's skip ahead a bit. It's December 2021. For one of the last few days before winter break, we aired a segment where one of the anchors was quizzing another with a list of different Christmas movies, and he had to tell which titles were real and which ones were fake. I made the whole segment. I kind of came up with the idea. I say kind of because I think I kind of stole it from somewhere, but whatever. I directed it, I produced it, I shot it, I edited it. It was me. It was just I wasn't one of the people on camera. It's a pretty generic idea. It's something you would see Jimmy Fallon do, you know. But I had a whirl with it. I did my quick editing. I did my kind of very in-your-face style with editing. Different than The Jake Show, but still my humor. It airs. And the general response is pretty good. The administrative response, on the other hand, since we were the administrative mouthpiece for the school, we would frequently hear from the principal and other administrators about the news. The TV production teacher was frequently in talks with the principal about what was being aired and everything. Apparently, the principal was not a fan of the segment. So much so that he had a whole list of changes he wanted us to make for the whole news program. I forget some of them now, but it was like the main criticism was that we were unprofessional. We weren't serious. So we were to make a serious show. There were too many repeat anchors, so instead what we were to do is every single day we would cycle our roles. We had to wear uniforms for every single recording. But it was going to be a serious show. Not something unprofessional, not something goofy, serious. I was not a fan. Not at all. I quite literally stormed out of class the day that I was told this. The day that we got all these criticisms laid down onto us. We were originally told that the next few days of school, we weren't going to be airing any news because it was like something with midterms or whatever. But we were surprisingly told that we were actually. So we were last minute putting everything together. But I wasn't, because I was being petty. Because I was saying, well, it's a different role day. Normally I do these many roles, and I'm only going to do one today. I'm just going to be the cameraman. And oops, all right, here's the camera. I didn't do any work. I just was a petty bitch and refused. It was malicious compliance. Over the winter break, I just brewed and stewed and got more and more angry. I have the world's most active internal monologue. It's a frequent joke on the podcast. So if there's something that pisses me off and I'm given more and more time to think about it, I only get even angrier and angrier and angrier. I just think and brew and stew and get more and more angry and frustrated and irritated and irritable and everything. So a serious broadcast, I thought. I'll make this serious. Maybe I will do some investigative journalism about my middle school in the county and how it was basically segregated. Maybe I'll do an investigative piece about how the high school football coach would have some weird religious practices that he would kind of peer pressure the other players to do. Maybe I'll do some investigative journalism about some of the weird practices the schools do, like separating the genders at lunch. Or maybe, just maybe, I'll do a whole segment about this new COVID variant. What is it? Omicron? I mean, after all, just a month or two ago, the mandatory mask mandate for all students was lifted, so now's the time, right? Even before I aired the COVID segments, I was pretty petty in the January news broadcasts. I lowered the saturation of the thumbnail that we used every day, making it much more muted. I slowed down and I think added a little bit of reverb or pitch shifted the normal cheery music to make it more depressing. And then I also told all the anchors to act extra depressed and extra bored and to wear their masks because I had previously been doing it that it was optional for them. Friday, January 7th, 2022, the first one comes out. Normal news broadcast with COVID coverage in the middle. Apparently, we get some flack for it, but nothing crazy. Monday, January 10th, 2022, the second one comes out. Again, normal broadcast, COVID coverage in the middle. This one was focused a lot more on the battle between the Florida governor and the federal government about mask mandates. This one, apparently, the school got a number of calls from people, complaining about it. And so a few hours after it had been public and everyone was supposed to have watched it, the teacher privated it and took it down, which was annoying, but ultimately I was like, that's okay. Because a few hours after it had been posted meant that most of the students at the school would have probably already watched it. Tuesday, January 11th, the third one comes out. Except it didn't. Apparently, the school district had sent out an email to every single high school media teacher saying that we can't talk about COVID at all unless it is an official district statement. The thing is that no other high school had a news broadcast. But as a result, the video never came out. From talking with the teacher and the vice principal a little bit, we learned a few things. One, this was a result of parents complaining to the district. But two, apparently there was a cabal of parents and Buchholz teachers who had joined together really with the specific goal of just hating on me and hampering me. Odd. I know. I was kind of crushed about it because I put a lot of work into those videos, and the third one was the one that really I cared the most about and was the most excited for. So having it not aired was pretty defeating. Luckily, a few days later, I test positive for COVID, meaning I'm out of school. Let's pause for a minute to go on a tangent. This is my middle school, Lincoln Middle School. It was segregated until 2019. The magnet program kids would all be in one hallway, while all the kids zoned for the school would be in an entirely separate hallway. And what was the racial breakdown of each of the two programs? Oh, Ouch. As I would learn later on, this practice was relatively common for schools in the school district. So that's cool. Also, for some reason, the school kept the gender separated at lunch. I believe this still actually happens. The boys would be on one side and the girls on the other. They would then have co-ed lunches be a treat for the student body if we had good behavior. Yippee. This practice was also shared by multiple schools in the district. Cool. Back to 2022. I, this whole time, had been very paranoid about COVID. I was terrified, truly, truly terrified of the idea of me getting it and giving it to someone because they may die, or they may give it to someone and that person may die, or they may give it to someone and that person may die, or they give it, but you get the point. I was terrified of it. I was terrified of the idea that I was this chain of a food pyramid, food web. I didn't want to be part of it at all. I was truly, truly, truly terrified. As a result, I stayed home and stayed in one single room for almost 2 weeks straight. I think it was a total of like 10 or 12 days. And of course I would leave to use the bathroom, but otherwise I was just isolated in this one room.
I'm in the dark, and I was gonna record this earlier, but it's the end of day 2 of my quarantine. I'm okay. Haven't gone batty quite yet.
End of day 3 of my quarantine. So, notes. I am starting to go a little batty. What did I do today? I edited the morning news. Oh, I woke up at 6 a.m. after going to sleep at 2 a.m. I edited the morning news. I watched the Eternals movie. Played some games. Some basic, like, push-ups, squats. Whatever the thing is called. Lift-ups, that's not it. But it's where you have, like, your knees up and you're laying back and you put your heads behind your head and, like, bend forward. That thing. While I was going bonkers and depressed in my isolation room, the TV production program was struggling to continue functioning. Because it wasn't Jake the engine pushing things along, it was, I assume, the teacher who I think had a background in English or marine biology or something, but not TV production. And he didn't really know all that much about TV production, which led to a few mistakes.
Fries, cookies, iced coffee, and chips. Okay. I'm gonna kill myself.
To be blunt, the news struggled and sputtered without me. It was completely subpar in quality and just overall boring. So, by the time I did come out of my bunker, enough time had passed from the principal getting mad at us about being unprofessional that we were good to go to making fun things again. February. Make a few things. Cool. Whatever. March 2022. This is around the time of the passing of the Don't Say Gay bill. Because of it, there was a big walkout that was being scheduled to happen at the school. And so I had the idea, hey, what if I do a completely nonpartisan video about the bill? Try to be as impartial as possible so that I can at least inform about the bill. And by being impartial, you can kind of point out the fact that it's ridiculous. So I did. I made the segment and I put it in for the morning news and we were going to play it. And then we sent it off to the principal for approval because at this point now the principal wanted approval for every single news broadcast. But when he went to watch it, he rejected it. Because apparently, hey, he was a cool guy. He didn't mind it. But apparently the school district had made some statement that no school officials were allowed to make any official school statement about the bill if it wasn't the district themselves saying it. Well, that's odd, I thought. Because in the video, I explicitly say, this is me. I am not making any official statements. Also, the principal himself made an official statement on his own about the walkout.
In response to House Bill 1550.
Curious.
Anyway, I kind of packed it up and moved on. Whatever. That's the way it is.
April 2022.
For a few months now, I had been trying to work on a charity fundraiser as part of TV production.
It was going to be for a week and a half, and we had some milestone goals for like general, if we hit this amount, and then also individual incentives for people who donated. Like this shirt was if you donated $20. We made this shirt. I did a lot of the designing and then got a lot of help from another kid who was like unofficially in the class.
As part of doing it, and in order to do it, there were a ton of painful bureaucratic hoops that I had to jump through.
Technically, the school couldn't directly raise money or hold on to money and then donate it to a charity outside of this like select few that the district had decided on.
Technically, the school couldn't actually raise money that it held on to without there being a ton of mess with bookkeeping. And technically, the school wasn't allowed to use any outside fundraising website such as Tiltify.
But from meeting with bookkeeping and from meeting with the student activities director, we were able to make it work. We were able to figure out loopholes, all these different things to be able to officially do this.
And so we did. In the end of April, for a week and a half, we did the charity fundraiser. And we ended up raising a total of $2,340 for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which was sick. And for the $1,000 reward, I shaved my head even. It was a lot of fun. And every single day I made a new segment for it. News was a lot of fun that week and a half. Good times.
And then, for the rest of the year, it was pretty smooth sailing.
We did a little sing-along thing,
do a rock, paper, scissors tournament with teachers. Good times.
Over the summer, I spent my time doing two things.
One, college applications, because I was about to be a senior. And, yeah, you know, that's an important thing.
But two was planning the future of TV production, because now I was a lot more of an official, unofficial teacher.
And I also spent, like, a good chunk depressed and another good chunk, like, on a filmmaking camp.
But I was really looking forward to TV production. We were going to have a whole new group of people who were interested in the class, and that's why they wanted to join. Previously, we had just gotten a lot of people who just joined because, like, it was a class. Now it was a class they were interested in. And I did that. I did that by marketing the class well, by promoting the class well, by making the class look like something fun.
I even wrote my main college application, like your personal statement, about this all. About wanting to instill a feeling and sense of passion in all these people who I was going to be working with, so that they would be just as motivated and have just as big of imaginations and desires to work as I did.
What I was able to do for my senior year is I had it worked out so I would spend half of my day in TV production. I had one just normal class period dedicated to being there.
Then I had one free period, which I would inevitably end up spending all my time in TV production.
And then because we were concerned about me having 2 free periods for college applications, I worked out a deal with an art teacher who was willing to do it so that I could go to her class and then just check in and then go to the TV room. It was great.
But so I was spending 3 periods a day in there every day. And then also on top of that, I was eating my lunch in there, where I would also be working at the same time.
Very quickly, though, I realized that my goals for instilling similar senses of passion wouldn't be the case.
Everyone who joined the class was nice, unquestionably. I really, really do care about all of them, except for the one that, whatever, got charged for some sexual crimes. But everyone else, I really, really, really cared about. And I do care about. Love them all. They're great.
But they didn't share the same sense of initiative that I did.
They
would be there if I asked them for help, but rarely they themselves would take on work by themselves. Would they take the initiative to do some of the steps of the process?
It was people who joined the class largely because they thought the class looked fun, not because they had some huge passion and desire to get into the filmmaking career. And that's fine. To be clear, I get why they did that. I've joined electives based on that reasoning.
And they're not wrong. They're not wrong for doing that. That's a fair reason to join the class, but just wasn't what I was hoping for.
Also, we were still incredibly limited by the tech of the school. Near the end of the last year, one of our main pieces of equipment broke, and then despite the district people coming in and looking at it, they didn't replace it.
And then all the computers that we had allotted to us to use were really old and very limited. So much so that they couldn't handle any editing software, pretty much. Or even the editing softwares that we were told we would be able to use. They just couldn't handle them. I tried, they couldn't.
So that meant all the editing work was still on me, which I was fine with, but you know, it's still like an hour or two of work every single night just on me.
Keep in mind, during these first few months, I was still incredibly busy with college applications. I had to make a whole creative video for one of the college applications for a school that I didn't even get into.
But as a result, that hogged up a lot of my free time outside of school. And so I wasn't able to make a lot of the extra segments. Instead, my class time during school and all the free time I had, I would end up trying to put into the main TV production show, making sure that it was as smooth as possible, figuring out all the little imperfections and blemishes, trying to make it as good of a core show as possible.
So for like the holiday specials we did, I put a lot of effort into those. And I think it paid off. There's like a good amount of Halloween decorations. We decorated our set a fun way, did total innovations for that, you know, a lot of custom editing, and it was a lot of fun. But it was like, you know, sprucing up the core show.
Or there was one day where we got some criticism from someone saying, because an anchor had on a shirt that said, "I heart hot moms." And so an anonymous teacher left a complaint saying, you know, expect some level of professionalism. It doesn't have to be the level of Walter Cronkite, but it should be something. Walter Cronkite was like an old TV news anchor. He was like the guy who reported that JFK was shot. But so I then ran with that criticism, and I made a whole day of news totally dedicated to mimicking Walter Cronkite's style. Like, I had the anchors dress up in old-timey jackets. I had them try to put on transatlantic accents. We did a lot of video editing and video filters to try to mimic chromatic aberration. It was a lot of little things like that. Just the day-to-day making it fun.
During this, I did like one Jake show because there was one day where our tech was screwed up or we weren't able to record or something. But that was about it.
Because also during this time, I was now the treasurer of Earth Club, which was just a really messy, bloated club in retrospect. Like, there were 9 officers in total. There didn't need to be 9 officers in total. We would have less than 9 people show up for every single one of our meetings. But I was now the treasurer of that. And that ate up a good chunk of time as well. Because, one time I had to make a whole custom video. Not had to. I volunteered to make a whole custom video for Earth Club.
Brief side note, there was like a school event where it was supposed to be all the clubs make their own custom video and submit it, and then they would play them. It was in like October. I made a whole one for the Earth Club. It's what's up on my YouTube channel.
And so I remember we went to the show and it was nice, but then our video played and like the first half was like what I edited, but then the second half was just totally butchered. It was horrible. I was pissed the fuck off because it was like I also in the first half made some kind of joke edit about how it was me editing it. So then the fact that the second half was so fucking horrible and weird and like it was just like overly bright and optimistic, which wasn't the vibe I was going with at all. You can see the video, it's on this channel. But I got pissed the hell off. Anyway, that took up a good chunk of time as well.
I was still well known at the school, which was nice. It's not like I lost all my reputation overnight.
Like, there was one time where the
a cappella chorus group asked me for a favor, and well, I mean, they paid me for the favor, but I went to go record their audition to something, and when I showed up, they all gave me a standing ovation, which was really cool. That is probably one of my favorite memories. That'll go down in the history books of Jake's mind. It's November. College applications are finally done. Thank God. We had also just done a big Halloween show, which was a lot of fun. But just as I'm starting to get motivated again, starting to get some amount of energy to be creative again, and I'm no longer so burnt out, I get sick. So I'm out of school. We had now reached the point where the anchors and everyone in the class were good enough that they could record it by themselves and then just send it to me to edit. And so that's what we would do. They would record it, I would edit it at home. And it was a weird sickness. It kind of presented itself pretty odd. There was like some pain while peeing, general muscle pain, fevers, like really low appetite. A week into being sick, I tested positive for the flu, which was odd because I had gotten a flu shot and it wasn't presenting like flu symptoms. After another week of being sick, so like I had missed the first full week before Thanksgiving break. Then I'm sick for another week over Thanksgiving break. I get a blood test done and the results are quite bad. My creatinine was incredibly high or low or something. And also a bunch of my other stats were messed up. And so there was like a 2-hour period where I guess it seemed like I had leukemia. I didn't know that this 2-hour period existed until it was done, because apparently my mom had a friend who was a doctor, and so he looked at the blood under the microscope and it looked not leukemia-y. So I didn't have leukemia, but still, either way, I was very fucked up. So the same day, that night, I go to the emergency department, ER, whatever, the ER. You can fucking, if you're one of those people who's like, oh, it's actually the ED, fuck off. It's the ER. I go to the ER. Now, for some reason, a year prior, I got my wisdom teeth pulled out, and ever since then, I've just been pretty freaked out by the idea of procedures, surgeries, whatever. I don't know. I don't know, but it's just freaky. Not a fan. And hospitals, I think. I'm better now because I've watched so much House MD over the past year. But it's still a little for me. So I was not excited. But eventually, after going there, waiting in the waiting room for a good number of hours, and then they eventually take me in, and then they eventually give me a scan, they see everything. And it looks like I have appendicitis with a huge fucking abscess. I had a huge fucking abscess. I don't remember exactly how big it was. It was either 6 inches or 6 centimeters. But either way, I think that is massive. Either way, the doctors were like, holy fuck, that's big. Like, no wonder you're in a lot of pain. Like, they were shocked that I was still functional and not, like, wailing out in pain. And I mean, what can I say? I'm just the goat. But still, it was a big fucking deal. So, because of how big the abscess was, they couldn't just take out my appendix. They would have had to stick a drain in to drain out the pus to then be able to remove it. But because of a lot of hospital bureaucracy and shit and scheduling and whatever, the surgeon wasn't available immediately. And I wasn't in bad enough shape that I needed it right now. So they just had me stay overnight, and I was to go on painkillers and antibiotics to help with things. And so, all right, and then they'll try again the next day. So we go to the next day, and then another night, and then the next day, and then another night, and then maybe the next day. I don't remember. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was just smooth sailing, totally conscious, totally sober. My mental was fried. Completely and utterly fried from being in there. Because every 4 hours they would come, they would check my IV, they would check my blood, they would check my pulse, a bunch of different things. They would give me pills. It was fucking up my sleep. And they came when I was asleep but it fucked up my sleep so much that I didn't even remember them coming. It took my mom telling me about it later on for me to realize that that happened, despite the fact that I apparently was fully conscious when they came in and woke me up. I was in this constant state of dormant but kind of active anxiety because it was being in a hospital. There was this looming procedure of a drain being stuck in my stomach that I would have to be conscious while it's slowly draining out of. During this time in the hospital was actually when I came up with the idea to interview the gossip accounts, because this was around the time the blackface photo of that girl was circulating. And so I was like, I wonder what the owner of the account actually thinks about this. Eventually, it's time for me to get the drain out. Finally, after days of waiting, and I'm trying not to freak out. I'm really concerned, and it's a procedure, and they're gonna have something in me that I'm gonna be conscious during, but I don't know, it's this whole thing. And so right before they do it, and I'm already on meds that are gonna be taking me out of consciousness, they do one last scan to figure out where exactly they're supposed to be doing incisions. And then when they do that scan, they realize, oh, the 3 days of me being on painkillers and, more importantly, antibiotics had shrunk the abscess. They didn't need the drain. So, whatever. Skipping to the point, they couldn't take the appendix out yet because a lot of inflammation, but things were mostly settled, and my blood was messed up largely because of some other meds that I was on at the time for my jaw condition. I just had some paperwork, some little more tests, and then I was free and ready to go. Eventually, I got out of the hospital. But my brain was fried, just obliterated. I've long described that the way I think about things is I have 1.5 trains of thought at a given time. Maybe it's the ADHD. It's definitely the ADHD. But that's just how I function. And what that means is that frequently I will get bored if there is something I am doing that is only consuming one train of thought at a time, and there is that excess 0.5 still hanging around. That's bored and bored and bored and just wants something to do. But then when I can focus all 1.5 trains at the same time, then I'm great and I'm cruising and I can be super productive. But after the hospital stay, I felt like I only had 75% of one train. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like I was thinking properly. It really freaked me out. It really made me realize how much I value my own cognitive processing and functioning. I was slow and very fragile. Normally, I'm super fast and normal fragile. Looking back, it was most realistically from the chronic lack of sleep. I'm someone who has insomnia, who struggles with sleep, so I think the added influence of checks and tests being done every 4 hours really fucked with me, but it completely tanked me. I was wiped out and my mind was a mess. I felt like I had a whole brain fog. I spent like a week of school not in school. This was the week after Thanksgiving break. All I did was just come in for TV production and sit there like a husk while everyone else would kind of lead things for the most part, because that's all I felt like I could handle. By this point, it's beginning mid-December, but there was only like a week or two in December, and all of that was spent like prepping for the Christmas show that we did for the morning news. I realized, oh shit, I wanted to do a segment where I was going to be tongue-in-cheekly kind of making jabs at that event they did for the clubs that was like really botched, and trying to say, hey, if other clubs want to air their videos how they were originally planned, they can send it to us at the morning news and we'll air them. However, it had been a while since I had done anything on camera. And so this relatively small promo, I was definitely overthinking. Incredibly overthinking. As a result, I ended up doing it, but apparently I didn't make any sense to anyone. And I didn't find out about that until days after, when we had already stopped airing it. It was like 7 minutes or something of me just babbling, I think. And people didn't get it. And so that sucked. A lot. Because it was the first news broadcast I had been on, an extra segment I had done in a long while. And it was the first one that really felt like a failure. That felt like no one got. Over the winter break, I am kind of just an anxious mess. There were a few different projects that I was trying to work on, but none that I was really focusing on too much. Instead, I was spreading my attention pretty thin. I was also dealing with, we were trying to get someone new to join the class, but the administration was being oddly resistant to it. And so I was trying to think through loopholes or ways that we could get them into the class. Eventually, through all this, I got my shit together. And I decided, all right, I'm just going to focus on the Gossip Accounts video. It's the mid or end of January. We're back in school. Things are getting moving again. I ask out a girl I like. She says no. All right. That's a bummer. I know we'll still be friends, but for the weekend, I'm depressed. Then, while I'm sitting around all weekend, I have an idea. I want to do another charity fundraiser. But the biggest downside with the one that I did the year prior was that it wasn't the most organized. It was every single day me scrambling to come up with a new segment to promote it. It wasn't really the most fleshed out. There was one day where at the end of the school day, I didn't know what the segment was going to be for the next day to promote the fundraiser. But then I had an idea while walking out of school, and it was just made. I made it overnight, start to finish. But as a result, it didn't feel really fleshed out. It didn't feel that big. It was a little messy. And I think as a result, it was not as good as it could have been. So what if we did it as a whole day thing? Made it this big event live stream, and then all the money being raised goes to charity. A big event, something cool, something fun. I don't know, just something. And all of it, the whole purpose would just be raising money for charity. It's February. The first weekend I spend going to Boston to tour at a school that I would eventually go to college to. And then eventually probably drop out from, but whatever. The next weekend, I am set to have my appendix be taken out because it never was taken out. And I'm a good bit nervous about it. I get it taken out eventually, and that's fine. The problem is that is a procedure, that is a surgery. And so as a result, I'm getting pretty anxious, pretty stressed. Because of all that stress, I start to do a worse job at managing TV production. And I start butting heads a lot more with my right-hand man, woman. For a while, vibes were kind of pretty tough because there was a lot of tension between us. Hold on, pause. But let's actually stay in the same time period. February 22nd, as part of being in charge of the morning news and doing the editing, I get sent a new video that is supposed to be put in the morning announcements. It's supposed to be this anti-suicide video and, just throw it in like any other PSA video. And I go to watch it, and
it's just easier to do nothing.
Scrawny. Chubby, short.
It's been hard for me to stand up for other people because I feel like I'm already a target.
You're not being bullied.
Did you bully this burger?
Well, yeah. This is a defenseless Whopper Jr. He can't defend himself.
I don't mean anything by it.
It's just for laughs.
Just for laughs.
Something wrong with you?
You can't be serious.
Had you seen me bullying this burger, would you have stood up and said something?
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Hi, Reese.
We're just having fun.
You having fun? You're not having fun.
Friends standing up for me. I've been that kid, so if I see it, I'm gonna do something about it. And I hope there's more people out there like that.
oh my God, this is bad. Being given stuff in the TV production to put in the morning news that we personally did not like was not a new thing. And I'm a bit of a petty bitch. So, like at the beginning of the school year, we had to do this whole multiple week-long thing about Bobcat Pride, which was the school's stupid fucking acronym motto that they adopted, and it was about raising school spirit and whatever. But I just fucking despised it. The way that we were going about it and being forced to go about it was like, it was horrible. I hated it. It felt childish and condescending and gross. So because of that, I kind of sabotaged it. Whenever the segment was played, I would use really cheery, over-the-top music, and I would tell the anchors to read the descriptions as if they were like reading to little kids. And then also every single day, I would use just the most childish and simplistic sentences ever. Even later in the year, we had to do a lot of stuff with like word of the day, which I hated for similar reasons. So for that, I knew that the administration wasn't budging and it's not like they would stop at a certain point. So I never fully implemented it. I never fully had the anchors read it out. Instead, I would just put the text on screen because I just refused. I wouldn't do it. It was too dumb to me. Or for African American History Month, we were given a list of trivia questions to ask the audience, which is fine to do, to be clear. But what wasn't fine is that nearly half of the correct answers were just blatantly false once we looked into them at all. So then the onus was on us to go through and give the extra effort to fact check each and every single one of these trivia questions. I can't put this in. So there were two main reasons why I didn't want to include it. One was that the video was a piss poor job at depicting bullying, and it did it overall in a way that was pretty unprofessional and condescending and like belittling as to the severity of bullying. And I even made a whole 10-minute video in one of the previous versions, or I don't remember when I made this video actually, but I made a whole like 10-minute commentary video breaking down frame by frame why the video was so bad. For two, I wouldn't include it because it depicted this company, plusitivity, as this like beacon for whatever, for bullying resources or something. Whereas in reality, they're just like some random health positivity mindfulness company that when researching wasn't the most credible. So it was fucked up that we were depicting them as this good resource for students to go to. Also, it was told to me as an anti-suicide video, but it was really anti-bullying, which was just like, okay. So, in response, I wrote a whole ass 1,100 word email to the principal saying how we couldn't and I wouldn't include the video in the morning news. Here's what ended up happening though. My TV production teacher agreed with me on it. Also, apparently the social worker who had originally sent the video to the principal, it turns out sent it to him by mistake. She sent him the wrong link or something. And she actually agreed with me on the video. The principal, however, did not. Instead, rather than us actually baking it into the morning announcements, what he said that we could or would do is just instead send it out in the email as well as the morning announcements. Normally there would be an email sent out to teachers every single morning with the morning announcements. Now it would be the morning announcements and this other video. He probably did this because he knew that I was not going to budge and no one else knew how to edit. What I want to note here is that despite the fact that very frequently I would, or much more frequently than the average student, I would send messages up the chain of command to the principal, whether that be emails, trying to talk to him directly, whatever. He very rarely would actually talk to me back in return. He very rarely would directly talk to me. Instead, he would use a plethora of middlemen, the TV production teacher, vice principals, teachers, whatever, which isn't cool. Straight up. It's just disrespectful. I'm not someone who's huge on respect. I don't give a shit. But like, come on, seriously? I am trying to talk to you as a human, talk back to me as a human. Anyway, back to the story. It's March. During March, I was dealing with a lot of the same issues I had been dealing with in the past few months. College stuff, butting heads with my right-hand man. There was also spring break, which just ate up a lot of time. However, during this all, I was also sinking more and more time into two projects in particular. The Gossip Accounts video and the charity fundraiser. I did have a lot of other ideas around this time, or like before leading up to this time, but due to a lot of time crunch before the end of the year and wanting to make sure that everything was nice and fully fleshed out, I decided to just ditch them. Like I had an idea for a video to just pretend to be some innocent little high school news reporter and get the military recruiter to agree to do an interview and then actually grill them on serious things. Like about how it's kind of predatory that they're coming and trying to recruit high schoolers. That was a real video plan I had. I had a midterm proposal for a different class that I wrote about this idea, but I had to kind of give up on it because of everything else going on.
For the gossip accounts video, this was around the time that I made the Sarah Daniels account and like going through the process of setting up that catfish.
So that's of course a good bit of work. And funnily enough, people still fall for that account. It like will still get follows from people who I think are just like in similar social spheres to all the ones that it leached onto, or I leached onto, and they just don't realize what the account is. Even though I publicly posted on there, this is a catfish, you have been tricked. Whatever. I don't know.
For the charity fundraiser, I was also coming up with a lot more fleshed out of a plan for what the show would be.
So this was going to be what the show would be like. You know, like segments and everything. It was going to be where it would be in the school because space was a important factor in all this.
Who we would have both as on-screen talent and behind the scenes, and a lot of stuff of like when.
And the date. Oh my God, the date. The date of May 15th was ultimately chosen. I had to work with a bunch of different people on getting their thoughts on what date would work because it's the end of the year. Things are going to be pretty busy. I'm well aware of that. But May 15th was the best date.
The idea of May 15th was that this was going to avoid the most amount of testing because there was a ton of testing going on. There was state testing, senior testing, AP testing, makeup testing, certification testing, all these different things. And so it was really like trying to fucking thread the needle with a date that would piss off things the least.
Then by having it be May 15th, that gave me roughly a month. In the 2 weeks directly leading up to the event, it was gonna be figuring out a lot of things like the set, the technicals, the cameras, the rehearsals, everything, right?
And then the 2 weeks prior to that would be figuring out a lot of the bureaucratic red tape with going through administration and everything with that.
Because I realized there was gonna be a lot of back and forth with this all. I knew there was gonna be a lot of red tape. So 2 weeks should be enough, right? Before those 2 weeks, I was going to work to make sure that this proposal plan that I was going to give was spotless. Because inevitably there will be some issue, but if I can preemptively smooth out as many bumps and cracks and issues, then it'll maybe, hopefully, work out a bit better.
I also had finally decided what charity we were going to do it for. Last year we did St. Jude's, which is a good charity, but, you know, it's big.
I think the amount of money that we would be able to raise for them wouldn't be as meaningful for them as it might be for a different charity. And also, because of all the work I was doing on the gossip account stuff, I felt some kind of obligation and desire to do something that was about teen mental health. So the first charity I thought of was the Trevor Project, which, if you don't know, they do mental health assistance and suicide prevention for LGBTQ plus teens.
But I realized that, unfortunately, the charity would be more difficult to get approval of.
So, going on Tiltify, which was the charity fundraising website we had used the year prior, which we got approval for the year prior, despite it being different than how the school normally did things, but we got approval the year prior. I went through Tiltify to look at every single charity they had for teen mental health, because it's fucked up, but I wanted to see if there might be one that would cause less controversy and make it easier to do it at all. And, nope, there wasn't.
There's like one other that was in like Canada, but that's Canada.
So I just went with the Trevor Project. It was the biggest charity for teen mental health and suicide prevention. It was listed on the school district as a reputable place to go to for suicide prevention. I'll just do them.
Before I know it, it's April. Luckily, a lot of the problems that I was dealing with in March had been figured out by this time. So college things were figured out, and I was butting heads less with my right-hand man.
Wait a minute. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't you supposed to be like a high school student during this time? Like, you were still a senior, right? Yeah. Kinda. Nearly all of my effort was going towards the charity fundraiser. And then when there were holdups with the charity fundraiser, normally as a result of waiting for other people to get back to me, I would then work on the gossip accounts video, since that thing at least I could do by myself. However, I did have like 3 AP tests, but I made the executive decision early on that these were just going to be 3 AP tests I would not study for at all. I did not study for them at all. Like maybe an hour before them or the morning of, but otherwise I did not study for them. But I mean, why did it matter? I was a senior. I could have senioritis, right? Like I'm allowed to do that. I had already gotten into the college. It's just my senioritis wasn't not having any energy to do anything. It was not having any energy to do shit that I didn't care about. Only having energy to do things I did care about. So I really deprioritized all my classes. Now, to be fair, it's not like this was an issue. I still had straight A's during this time. But I just wasn't putting any extra effort in anymore. April 19th, 2022. 2022? No, 2023. Oh, shit. Once I feel that the plan is fully fleshed out enough, and I have enough teachers signed on who are agreeing to participate and help out with this, I submit a printed out version of the plan to the front office, to the principal's office. I should also say, during this whole thing, I was being super official about it. I was going through all the proper bureaucratic channels, filling out all the necessary paperwork, really being super official as much as I could with this all, since I wanted it to go as fast as possible, since I knew there would be a lot of roadblocks. Thursday, April 20th, around 11 a.m., I get called to have a meeting with one of the vice principals, and it's about the plan I submitted. I have a little meeting with her in her office, and she gives me back the plan annotated with 3 main concerns. I still have this annotated plan somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but it's somewhere. I'll pull it out at some point. But she had 3 main concerns. 1, the date. It was going to be right at the end of the year, when there was admittedly a lot going on. 2 was Tiltify, the fundraising website, even though it was the same website we had used for the year prior, but apparently it was not district approved. And then 3, the fact that we were raising money for the Trevor Project. Now, she didn't explicitly say why it would be a problem. She just more like had it highlighted and gestured at it and said something along the lines of like, I think you may know why this will be a problem. Or something like that. And I should have said, no, why? But I was like, yeah, okay. I did some pushback there, but it wasn't much. And she wasn't budging. So I took the plan and I left. But being the person I am, I was not going to let it end there. So over the rest of the school day, I wrote an 1,800-word email giving a more proper rebuttal to all the points that she had laid out. And I sent this at 5:35 p.m. I also CC'd the TV production teacher and, more importantly, the principal. Friday, April 21st, at 1:20 p.m., I get an email back from the principal. I would like to meet with you and Mr. regarding your request on Monday. Great! Hey, that's progress. That's a fucking meeting. That meeting has to be good, right? Like, you're not has to, but it might be. It's certainly something. He's not just rejecting it. I wonder when that meeting's gonna happen. On Monday. Actually, hold on. Wait a second. There are a few things that I've mentioned briefly, but haven't really gone into. So let me go into them a little bit more. This is my friend Evie. Hi, Evie. I know Evie because she's the younger sister of my other friend Vega, and they're pretty close as sisters. Vega joined the TV production class that year, at the start of the year. Mostly, I think, because it looked like fun, but also because I was in it, and I was a new friend of hers. And I think she was also getting a little tired of her art class, to be fair. Because Vega and Evie were so close, frequently, Evie would come into TV production just to visit and hang out. It kind of got to the point where Evie was there, like, as much as she would be if she was just in the class. She was there pretty much daily. So, Evie, why not just join? would be easier for you. That way you're not asking your art teacher for permission every day. And it'd be easier for us because then we just have another person in the class. And Evie wanted to switch. So around a few months before the end of the first semester, which is like the time that you should be asking about class changes, she started trying to talk to her guidance counselor about switching her electives. And her guidance counselor is the person that she was supposed to be talking to about this. I want to know. And it seemed like the idea had potential. But then Evie's counselor started dodging her, or wouldn't show up to agreed upon meeting times. Eventually, nearing the end of the first semester, Evie finds out that the guidance counselor was just fired. Not like just as in that was it, like just then fired, or like just recently fired. Oh, cool. So now instead, the issue of the class change was in the hands of one Melissa Prado, the assistant principal of curriculum at the school, rather than just like being handed to another counselor. All right, well, hey, at least now that's done with, because now there's someone who can actually do it, right? Except it wasn't, for some reason. Because for some reason, this 42-year-old woman had some weird personal beef with a high school student who was like, what would it be, like a third her age? Evie was working with the teacher, to be clear. But even when she roped her mom in to try to get the vice principal of a high school to give up on this personal weird vendetta, she just wouldn't. Because Melissa said that, Evie should have tried months ago and that it was too late at this point. Even though she had been trying for months now. So at that point, Evie just kind of gave up, which was a huge bummer to all of us. And then for the next school year, naturally, Evie wanted to join the class. She wanted to actually be in at this time. And funnily enough, even then, despite her putting it as her number one choice for elective, she wasn't put in the class. And even though the teacher was probably trying to make sure, like earmarking her to make sure that she got in, she wasn't put in. I wonder why. Remember how I briefly mentioned there was a girl that did blackface? If you want a more full rundown of the story, I kind of went into it a bit more on the Gossip Accounts video. TLDR, there was a girl who kinda pretty much did blackface at the school, and then another girl who was caught screeching the N-word at people. I grouped these two stories together because they're pretty similar in what ended up happening. Both of these girls were in the school cabinet, which is this like kind of exclusive club. Club's a harsh way of putting it, but like exclusive group elective of the school that was like in charge of decisions for the student body about like huge events like homecoming or spirit weeks or whatever. Apparently, I don't know if this is still the case. It used to be the case that you would have to pay to be a part of that. Or there were like fees that you had to pay, like dues. I guess dues is the better word. It was exclusive. There was some amount of prestige to it. Not a lot, but some. So both of these girls were in the school student cabinet, or in the school cabinet. After hearing a bit more about the story from previous cabinet members and current cabinet members, I found out a good bit more about the story. There was also another girl, I think, who was caught saying a bunch of slurs, which is great. Turns out, the majority of the other cabinet members for each of these girls wanted them kicked out and really pushed hard and hard to get them kicked out because they were making everyone else uncomfortable. But for some reason, the school administrators would defend them and kept defending them over and over again, despite the fact that neither of them showed any remorse and it made everyone else uncomfortable. It's odd. Why would the school administrators do that? Beats me. Recording this on a different day. That's why I look different. Why the setup is different. I'm also drinking a Slurpee. That's why my tongue is fucking blue. On January 15th, 2023, an article came out from the Independent Florida Alligator. Florida Buchholz High School nurses face felony for failing to report sexual battery of 15-year-old. 2 former nurses at Buchholz High School were charged with failure to report child sex abuse on January 5th. A Gainesville Police Department investigation into a sexual battery case in April led police to believe the victim disclosed details of a sexual assault incident to school nurses Rosalind Hamilton and Meredith Burns Brown. So the story is essentially, in 2022, there was a 15-year-old, and I think in 2022, there was a 15-year-old who went to the school nurses and reported an instance of sexual battery going on, of child abuse, sexual battery. The child said they did not want it reported to their parents because they didn't want to anger their parents. However, nurses have an obligation, a legal obligation, to report things to the Department of Child and Families. I think it's Child and Families. But they didn't. Instead, the nurses, when interviewed, said that what had happened was the 15-year-old had come in, asked for a pregnancy test, and otherwise the details were too vague to be able to draw any connections to it necessarily being child abuse. Considering that there was a police report into an actual crime, and that then led to an investigation into the nurses, it looks bad. Considering also they don't have their jobs back, it looks bad. Especially when you put into consideration how the whole reason they lost their jobs was because, quote, her failure to report the incident to DCF led the Alachua County School Board to suspend her and Hamilton until its investigation was complete. Presuming that once it was complete, if it was positive, then they would get their jobs back. They do not have their jobs back. So, while nothing is proven, and while I can't find any court records about this all, there is some legitimate concern here, right? Like that this gross negligence that happened to one student could have also happened to other students. Let's see what the district said about this, because this very well could have a lot of major implications. Alachua County Public Schools spokesperson Jackie Johnson wrote in a statement, the district fully cooperated with the investigation. Quote, we have a long-standing and excellent working relationship with the Department of Health, end quote, Johnson wrote. Quote, we obviously were in communication with the management there about the situation and are confident the appropriate steps were taken to address it. When I was reading this article back over, I was curious where else this statement would be. What else was said in it? And so I copied and pasted the quote, popped it into Google, and got nothing. So presumably the statement was made just specifically to the independent alligator, meaning that the district hasn't said anything else about it. I remember when I first found out about this, it was just I happened to see the headline, and then I saw it and I was shocked that no one else was talking about it, and I showed it to some other teachers at the school and was like, holy shit, isn't this crazy? How is no one talking about this? And they were like, yeah, I just learned about this. This is crazy. But in what is apparently a district statement, there is no district statement. You see what I'm saying? In my opinion, it really feels like this could have and should have been handled a whole hell of a lot differently by the district. Because this could have a lot of major implications and, like, it could turn over a lot of rocks, is what I'm saying. There could be other instances where this happened with other students, where nurses failed to do what they should have done. The district and the school could have done a lot more to address this issue on a wider scale. For instance, perhaps they could have sent some kind of email to all the students at Buchholz. You can keep it vague, sure, because of course you don't want to draw too much attention to it. You know, this is like a private matter and with the minor and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, you want to make sure that this hasn't happened to others. So you could make some kind of vague statement to the student body and say something how maybe if students feel like there were previous issues that they brought up to the nurses that weren't adequately handled, they should go talk to a guidance counselor about it. You know, like that whole bullshit of like, if you need help talking to someone during these times, the guidance counselors are available. That they'll always send out whenever, like, I don't know, a faculty member dies. That's grim. But like, yeah, shit like that, you know? Or if like there's like a weapon that's brought to the school or something. Like one of those kinds of emails. Send that out for students saying, hey, if you need someone that you want to talk about this with, you can talk to the guidance counselors. The guidance counselors are available. That way, at least you are trying to open the door so that if there is another student that this happened with, the student could go to a guidance counselor and say, hey, this kind of thing happened to me. I don't know how I should feel about this. And then the guidance counselor can help them through it. All right. Hey. I don't know. I'm recording this now. Most recent thing I've recorded. Because I tried recording this the other night when I was wearing that pink shirt that you probably saw. But after I finished that part about the nurses, I kind of had like a little bit of a mental breakdown, you know? So we're trying again today. And I'm not going to fucking wait till it's nighttime so that I can set up the green screen again. Because frankly, it's taking up too much damn space in my room and whatever. And because also, I don't really feel like reshooting that one from the other day because I just want to get this video done with. Pretty much. So, the point, me coming to you now, is to talk about this old damn thing, right? Gossip accounts. You probably remember this, or you don't. I had that whole video about it a year-ish ago about gossip accounts, which TLDR are the social media accounts that exist on social media platforms that are pretty much entirely focused on school gossip. And they aren't great for mental health. Let me turn off the fan. It just leads to a lot of like bullying to become more prevalent, you know, because of like modern day bullying. But with regards to our story in the school board of Alachua County, I bring up the issue of gossip accounts because I want to say how the school board of Alachua County and Buchholz have done nothing to address the issue of them. They are widely prevalent in a lot of the different schools. It's not just Buchholz. I looked at some of the other high schools in the district, and there are also gossip accounts for them, like an equally proportionate amount to the enrollment and everything. And from what I've seen, the school board has done nothing to address them. From what I've seen, administrators have done nothing to address them. It just started raining, so I'm on a time crunch before my lighting gets fucked up. So out of the ones that I focused on in the last video predominantly, that being the crushes one and the confessions one and some of the other ones, pretty much the main ones I focus on have stopped in one way or another. Either they stop because it is like they just don't post anymore, they're tired of it, they don't care anymore, or some of the accounts will still occasionally post like not what they were set out to be, but just some wild ass shit. Like weird ass fucking memes that don't really make sense, and it's clear these people are just trying to still live in their 15 minutes of fame. Like there was, I think it was the Crushes account, near the end of the last school year, was like, hey, I am not going to do this account anymore because I'm getting transferred to a different school or whatever because of zoning things. And if you want to keep looking at this, look at this new account that exists. I'm on the right side. This new account that exists. But then over the months of them just posting weird ass fucking memes, eventually, I think I saw them post at some point like, who thinks I should come back and restart it? Who thinks I should go back to the Crushes post? Even though at this point this motherfucker was about to graduate, I think? I don't remember. Something like that. Too old to be doing this, that's for sure. Or either way, for a lot of these accounts, even though these main ones that I focused on have kind of dried up, there has, at least over this past school year, been a lot of other ones that have taken their place. Akin to that of the Hydra, which I think I used at some point in one of these mental health videos. Or gossip account videos or whatever. Cut it down, another one fills its place. School gossip still exists. It's a matter of moderation. And so in its place, there have been new Crushes accounts, new confessions accounts that still will post similar crazy shit. I know in the gossip accounts video, I think I said something of how apparently this issue was brought up in PTA meetings. This issue was brought up in meetings with parents, with teachers, which is PTA, and discussed about this is some kind of thing that we need to do some action with. However, since then, I've heard mixed reports about that being the case. I've heard some people say that, in fact, they have never heard it brought up in PTA meetings. Now, to be clear, it was like a year ago since I've heard these mixed reports, but still, it adds inconsistency, speculation as to how seriously this issue is being taken. Now, you may say, realistically, What could actually be done? What could the schools be doing to fix this issue? Because, as I said, school gossip is school gossip. It will still exist. And how can you moderate it? Well, seemingly a lot. Finally, I can use this fucking interview I shot a year ago.
Where did you guys go to high school again?
We went to Westboro High School. It was the public school in Westboro, Massachusetts.
The other main thing I wanted to talk to you about, from the years that you were there and from your knowledge, your high school's experience with gossip accounts.
Yeah, so I don't care about gossip. There were a few accounts that I remember. I think the biggest one that would fit what you're looking for in general was, I do remember there was a ships account, and it would post like ships between people. The one I used honestly the most was like the school lunch review account. There's one that would post people sleeping in class. There was one that would show like that post PDA, but again, I don't think it was very active. But I think those are like the biggest ones and the ones that definitely like garnered the most attention and follows and engagement.
Well, you've previously told me about how the school administration really cracked down on them.
Yes.
So could you, from your memory, could you tell me about that?
What they did at the beginning of the year is they did each class was called into the auditorium and given like a presentation kind of talking about it. So the point of the presentation was kind of like an affirmation. So they did like a lot of like, they gave you like 4 W's. I can't even remember what they were, but it was kind of like just like a slogan. The main heart of it was, look, this is the first year going back to COVID. We let you guys get away with a lot of shit, and we mean a lot of shit during the COVID years because we got it. It was mental health. It was tough for everyone. Cool, whatever. That's ending. And what that meant was like, okay, we let you guys like wear AirPods in the hallways. Yeah, no more of that. We let some kids like wear hoods and hats. Yeah, we're cracking that back down on that. What was another one they did? Oh, the dress code was the one that blew up. I talked to you personally about that. And then under the rug, that kind of got underneath, like overshadowed by the dress code thing, was no more social media accounts that aren't officially endorsed by us. We've noticed a lot of accounts running with the WHS and talking about our school and being run by students. We're ending that. If you want to make an account talking about this school, you have to come for us and ask for permission. And then there was the purge of, again, I like that ship account I was talking about. Yeah, she gone. You can't find her. The WHS, the lunch one, gone. Basically every single one that even was remotely popular was purged by the administration. They basically forced every student to take them down.
From your knowledge, how did they actually go about getting them taken down? Did they like find out the students, or did they like try to work with Instagram or something?
I will say I don't know anything specific, but I'm gonna make a guesstimate based on how they acted previously. I think they would do the first one, so they try to like figure out who was running the account, and then if they couldn't, I think they did threaten going to Instagram directly. My guess is they did the first one. I don't know how they went about it. I don't know how they figured out who was behind each account. I couldn't tell you any of the details. And I don't even know if that's true, but again, my instinct and my guess, knowing this administration, is they went with the first one. So they asked each student individually to take them down.
And so you call it the purge. Is that just because like all of these accounts just like went black and silent?
Yeah, I call it that because you could find pretty easily a lot of WHS accounts, and then since that presentation, it's not even that they've gone dark, it's that they've been just deleted, like Thanos snapped. Like you can't, like half the ones I talk about that you can't find anymore.
But there's also a lot of other ways that the school could find these things out. Like, in the series of bomb threats that happened at Buchholz, once it was prevalent enough, what the school did is they said, we are essentially placing a bounty on if you have any information that leads to finding out who is calling in these threats, you will get $1,000.
Unfortunately, We've had another bomb threat, as you know. It's the third one we've had since the start of school. We need your help. There is a $1,000 reward being offered through Crime Stoppers. If it leads to an arrest, it's $1,000. I don't know about you, but I can do a lot with $1,000.
Similarly, schools could be doing things like that. Maybe not $1,000, but still, if you know who is behind these accounts that is causing such conflict among kids and hurting their mental healths, you will get some kind of reward in exchange for us taking it down by finding out who is the cause of these accounts. Because it's also not like a lot of these accounts are totally innocent. It's not like their badness ends at just school gossip. I have seen some of these accounts dox people before. Give real addresses, say harass this person. That, I believe, borders on illegal. And I think, as I talked about in the Gossip Accounts video, there have been previous instances where illegal things have been done in school contexts over social media that has resulted in police investigations into finding out who these perpetrators are. Similarly, there could be something done here. I know that in my middle school, there was a time where there was a gossip account that sprung up. And it was relatively smaller in comparison to a lot of the ones that I talked about in the Gossip Accounts video. It was just posting more innocent little things, if I remember correctly, about like crushes or whatever. But one day, there was a memo or some message that got sent around the school that if you are following the account, you will get suspension. You will get in-school detention. You will get some kind of punishment. And I know that that day, there was a wave of people panic unfollowing this one account. Now, I don't even know if the school even did that punishment. I don't think they ever officially said they were going to do that. But the fact that there was some concern over it was enough to get people to flock away in massive numbers, myself included. So similarly, imagine, if you will, the Buchholz administration was actually unable to find the person running these accounts. They couldn't sleuth it out by themselves, even though I did a fucking better job sleuthing than any of them did. But imagine if they couldn't. And so instead, it was all a preventative thing. Instead, it was all something trying to inhibit the, distribution. What could they do? Well, what they could do, they could release some kind of statement to the student body saying, hey, if you are publicly seen following these accounts, liking these accounts, that will be seen as supporting these accounts. And therefore, because these accounts have detrimental effects, because it is not great, there will be some disciplinary action taken against you because you are supporting this. You are supporting this school gossip culture, this cyberbullying culture. You could give that warning. And then a lot of kids would probably unfollow the accounts. They would probably disengage. And if there was some stubborn kid who wouldn't unfollow, who wouldn't disengage, I think there is some school administration, right, responsibility, bylaw, whatever, that you could weasel as a school administrator to apply to a student to say, hey, you are supporting this negative, gossiping, cyberbullying culture, and you will get discipline in return. I think it is possible. I think you could do it. So frankly, I don't see why they don't. I don't see why they haven't. All I know is occasionally I will get a follow request or a follow notification from a new gossip account that sprouts up at Buchholz. And again, I am reminded that nothing is being done to address this issue adequately. To me, it seems like there are a lot of potential options school administrators could be taking to solving this issue that is harmful to the mental health of so many students at their schools. But instead, school administrators just don't. Anyway, back to our story. April 27th, 2023. I still haven't had the meeting with the principal, Mr. Purvis. Every day for the past week, he had been pushing off the meeting. A day, and another day, and another day, and another day. I'm pretty fucking fed up because we are running out of time. This was now nearing the end of the week allotment or of the 2-week allotment that I had for red tape back and forth. So I send him an email saying how I'm just going to continue on without him.
I wanted to make one final attempt to reach out about meeting with you. Unfortunately, due to the timeline we are stuck in, I cannot further delay the necessary planning and pre-production. If you would like to meet to discuss the fundraiser, I would be more than happy to, as I have been. I was not at school today. You may not proceed with the fundraiser until we have met. Is there a time tomorrow that would work for you? Yes. Come by during third period. Sounds good. See you then.
By the way, I want to say that this same day, there was a whole art show that was happening in the school that was taking up the main central area called the mall. There was art all over. It was the whole day, and teachers could bring their classes in to be able to tour the art and do whatever.
April 28th, 2023. Early in the morning, I happened to run into the principal. He tells me how apparently in third period, there's going to be both a lockdown drill and a fire drill, but then to just come to his office afterwards. And I'm like, all right.
So after doing both those drills, I go to his office.
And upon getting there and waiting, I find out that this year's new student activities director, who was currently supposed to be out on maternity leave because she was very pregnant, is there at the school for some reason. Coincidentally.
I get pulled into Purvis's office for a meeting with both him and the student activities director, who, again, why is she there? She shouldn't be there. She should be on paternity leave.
Whereupon the following happens.
I am told that I cannot do the charity fundraiser as a part of TV production because of a load of bureaucratic BS.
I'm told that because of the date with teachers and finals, I can't do the fundraiser, despite the fact that I got a bunch of teachers to already sign on.
I am told that I can't do it because it would be too much work for the administration, despite the fact that I intentionally planned for the administration to not be involved at all because I knew they would be incompetent the whole time.
I'm told that I can't do the charity fundraiser because of the website, Tiltify.
And I tell him then, this is the same website we used last year for the charity fundraiser. He says he doesn't remember that. I say, the website or the fundraiser? He says both. And I am stunned. Mind you, I was wearing this fucking shirt in that meeting by happenstance.
He then says something very briefly about how maybe I could do it if I was an independent person, but otherwise, that's it. Them's the breaks.
And that, this is a real shame, and that because it's my last semester as a senior, and if only I had come to him sooner.
And that's the end of the meeting.
I walk out a little frazzled.
A good part of me stumped because I can't do it, but they provided a lot of reasons as to why.
It's not like they just flat out told me I couldn't do it at all. So I start thinking.
I can't do it as part of TV production, but I could do it as an individual. So what if I did it as an individual that just happened to be sponsored by TV production?
The Big Charity Fundraiser Bonanza by Jake Stalvey as an independent project, since he is allowed to do it that way. BCFB for short.
I decide to do a full-scale marketing pivot because at that point, that's what was communicated to me as being necessary to continue on.
The biggest concern outlined to me was that I couldn't do it as part of TV production. So if I just changed that, it would be good, right?
Skipping ahead a week, I am still diligently working on the fundraiser.
Out of my 6 class periods every day, 4 were being spent on the fundraiser.
I had 3 AP tests during this time. I did not study for them at all, besides maybe an hour or 2 leading up to them.
I would finish an AP test, and normally you're exempt from the rest of the day because your brain's fried from taking a 4-hour long test. I would go to school and work on the tech in TV production for the fundraiser. And everyone would be like, why are you here? I'm like, because I got work to do.
I'm emailing teachers. I'm filling out official requests for resources. I'm planning out all the tech. I'm doing all the shit that I had to do because the planned date is still May 15th, right?
For the 8th, I prep a little video that we're going to put in the morning news to announce the charity fundraiser.
But on the 8th, I find out that the morning news was vetoed by the principal. And apparently the principal had talked to the teacher about it more.
And I am relayed this information from the teacher. I send my mom an email recapping what I was told by the teacher. It says that Purvis said, 1, not allowed to advertise it on the morning news. 2, not allowed to use facilities. Asked Purvis if he told me that, to which Purvis said he thinks we had that conversation. Agrees that Purvis is being unnecessarily difficult. He says he is still willing to support, but can't think of a workaround currently. So if I think of one. I think 2 is bullshit, since I have authority through the classes of multimedia and TV production. 1, I think I can find a way to work around. Additionally, I was planning on stopping by the room of the teacher who is in charge of DECA and the Earth Club sponsor. WCAT has previously included ads by DECA for specific products, so I wonder if potentially those were specific projects done by kids in the class that we advertised. Also, based on precedent, 1 is bullshit. We have previously promoted things done independently by students. I must say, it continues to frustrate me that Purvis only communicates to me through instead of directly to me. I should say that during high school or middle school, if I had some disagreement with a teacher that like I felt so justified I was correct on, I would go through the student code of conduct and look at all the rights and responsibilities that students had as like the fucking Constitution. During this time, I had been scouring through the district's whole rules and regulations regarding the situation, finding every relevant clause and bylaw that would fit into things. And during this, I find out 2 main things. 1, under all the bylaws, the principal doesn't really have jurisdiction to be stopping me here. Like, not really. And 2, I can file a sort of official grievance report against him. Tuesday, May 9th. The news is vetoed again because I put the same fundraiser video in. As a result, I, with my mom's help, write up an official grievance report against the principal because he was outlining all these different concessions and I was doing them. What else was necessary? Straight up. Even my teacher agreed with me on this. He said, I can say this now because I think he quit. He said how like he agreed with me. He thought I was doing all the shit that the principal was saying and that the principal wasn't being fair. I was making all the concessions necessary and wasn't getting any movement. Here's where the timeline gets a little messy. So, fun fact, school districts, but especially SBAC, will generally avoid putting things in writing or emails or whatever. This is because written out declarations and rules can be cited back, whether by parties involved or by things like Freedom of Information Act requests, which public schools are, liable to? I don't know if that's the right word, but they're whatever, fuck you. For example, think about the Don't Say Gay video being shut down. That was never shut down in any written word over email. That was just through verbal, oral communication. Or think about the segregation at my middle school. Of course, no one would put the fact that they were keeping the school segregated in writing. No one who values their job working under a kind of corrupt and gross school would put in writing how the school is keeping itself segregated. Or, specifically, with the charity fundraiser, the part of the Trevor Project. No one ever, in written word, acknowledged the fact that it was for the Trevor Project. No one ever said that that was the issue. It was only ever verbally communicated to me, only ever highlighted on the annotated plan. I was the only one who actually put words to the fact that that was being cited as an issue in the email I wrote back to the vice principal. You don't put things in writing that you don't want coming out against you. So at this point in our story, communication about this all begins to happen more over the phone than over email. And of course, emails I can pull back up. Phone calls, I can't. So Wednesday, the news gets vetoed again. At some point on Wednesday, May 10th, Kathy Black, the executive director of ESSER and Student Services, who was the person you're supposed to email the grievance form to, called my mom to talk about it. From the seams of that phone call, Black is pretty supportive of the idea, but she has a few concerns, like how it may be tied up to my class projects, or how it may be intrusive to the whole school day for the whole school, and therefore the principal would have more authority to shut it down. We sent her an email back saying, oh, this is kind of linked to some of my class projects. This is kind of one of my finals. And also how just a few days prior, there had been that art show that was intrusive to the whole school day in a way, or at least as intrusive as this would be. Thursday, the news gets vetoed again. Later in the day, Black calls my mom back after doing a bit more investigative work about the whole situation. And the end result is no. For no good reason. Her reasoning was pretty similar to what I had been given previously. That the timing wasn't great, it might be intrusive, blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of it. I realized then that I could try to push things further. I could try to take this up another level, go to the superintendent, person above her, raise the issue with them. But the fundraiser was planned to happen the 15th. That's when I had everyone signed on to. That's the day that was the best for everything. And this was Thursday evening, afternoon. So it was going to be that next Monday. So even if it had been approved, I would have only been able to advertise it for that one day, that Friday. If I'm pushing it even further, I'm not going to be able to advertise it. So that was the end of it. I stopped going to school after that. There was only a week or two left for seniors anyway. And TV production, the charity fundraiser, and everything was the main reason I was going in the first place. But I also stopped working on the morning announcements as well. My whole rationale from the start of doing the work on them was because it felt like an exchange, that in reward for doing a bunch of this tedious, monotonous work, I would get creative freedom. But I had just been denied my creative freedom. I spent a week or so really depressed. All I was doing was every day playing Tears of the Kingdom. I had, funnily enough, originally planned that, this Tears of the Kingdom was going to come out a few days before. This is the newest Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom was originally going to come out a few days before the charity fundraiser. I was going to swear it off until the fundraiser was done, and then that would be my reward for finishing it. But it was canned. So hey, I could play it immediately. At a certain point, I took all my anger and frustration and started using it as energy to work on the Gossip Accounts video. And I did make it, which I did. And that video turned out really well. It's one of the things I'm the most proud of. But that was kind of the end of the fundraiser. That's fucked up, right? Like, that was how it all turned out. After all that work and all that planning, that's how it turned out. I mean, the school district is really adamant about trying to stop a charity fundraiser for suicide prevention. If they're so against it, then their mental health support must be great then. If they don't want me to fucking do this charity fundraiser, how are they doing? Huh? How about you? The main thing that SBAC has for student support is their guidance counselors. How many do they have? Oh, well, here's a nice link right here on the website that gives a list of all the... Oh. Never mind then. That was stupid to use a link that they gave me. What was I thinking? Well, when I was researching this last summer, and I still had access to my school email that was under the school district, I could access this document. And when I looked at it then, it said they had 60 guidance counselors. But I'm a sucker for being thorough. So let's go through every single school and count how many guidance counselors they have. I should say, a lot of the schools have a bunch of kind of odd jobs listed. Like there's family liaisons, behavior resource teachers, occupational therapists, wellness restart room coordinators. And while these are good, like I don't think they're unhelpful, it's not the same. Like there are schools that don't have counselors but do have a BRT. So if I had to guess, and this is pure speculation, I would think that you probably need some kind of license or something or degree to be a guidance counselor. But maybe it's a bit easier to find some of these other job positions. Just some speculation. But back to the listings. So there are a total of 26 elementary school guidance counselors. There are 12 middle school guidance counselors. And there are 19 high school guidance counselors. And there's one guidance counselor at one of the extra centers. So in total, that is 58. Oh. Okay. In total, there are 30,384 kids enrolled in the school board of Alachua County. So that is one counselor for roughly every 524 kids. For the record, that is less than half the recommended ratio by the American School Counselor Association, which is one for every 250. All right, well, that's guidance counselors. How many social workers, right? That's another thing that you need to have at schools. Maybe that's better. In ACPS, there are 13 schools that list a social worker as part of their faculty. Thing is, a few schools have the same social worker listed. And when it comes to like recommended ratios for amount of kids, you can't really have repeat of one individual person. In total, there are like 9 full-time social worker positions filled, assuming they're full-time. And that leaves a ratio of 1 social worker for every 3,376 kids. The recommended ratio is 1 social worker for every 250 kids. Okay, well, fuck. Shit. That's tough. All right, well, the other listed job that was really essential for mental health was school psychologist, right? Like that might be good, maybe, right? In total, there are 7 schools in ACPS that list having a school psychologist, but one of them does like twice at 2 different schools, and again, ratios and everything. So that's a total of 6. So 6 school psychologists. That's a tongue twister. So that is 1 school psychologist for every 5,064 kids. And the recommended ratio is 1 to every 500. So that is 10 times worse. Well, okay, maybe it's due to funding though, right? Like maybe that could be the core issue in this all. Maybe that's what's leading to all this understaffing. The short answer, no, it's not. For this, I'm going to largely use the numbers from the 2022 to 2023 school year rather than the 2023 to 2024 school year, just because I did a lot of the main number crunchings for this last summer and just haven't gotten around to actually making this video. And they're pretty similar for the most part. Let's use Buchholz, for example, because in ACPS, they are the largest school, the largest high school, both by funding and by enrollment. And they also have the most like guidance counselors and staff for one single school. So the numbers are a little finicky with the exact amounts. But by more conservative estimates, Buchholz got $12.386 million in funding for the last school year. They have 6 guidance counselors. That means that for the school as a whole, they have a ratio of 1 guidance counselor for every $2.1 million in funding. But let's compare that to some of the schools that I talked about in the mental health videos, right? Because like those are schools from all over. Let's compare that to Battle High School in Columbia, Missouri. They outsource their mental health services to outside sources, resulting in them having 8 counselors solely dedicated to just their school, but from said outside sources. Now, Battle has a total budget of $13.5 million. That leaves them with a ratio of 1 counselor for every $1.7 million in funding. You see the difference? Killingly High School was another school that I talked about a good bit. And they have a whole list of different mental health staff, totaling up to 8. So, okay, let's be fair. And Buchholz also has a few different mental health staff and also totals up to 8. So 8 to 8, right? Killingly, though, only got $7.1 million in funding. So that's a ratio of 1 mental health staff per 885,893 in funding versus Buchholz would have $1.54 million for every mental health staff. Okay, that's that. All right. But these are still cherry picking examples, whatever. I have a friend who went to high school in Massachusetts. He went to Westboro High School. Let's focus on them just as an example. So Westboro High School has a total of 6 guidance counselors and 13 total mental health staff. So the issue with comparing to them, though, is they do their financial transparency different than like most of these other schools, and that they don't have it broken down just by school. They have it as like the whole thing. But Westboro High School is the only high school in the school district, which makes it easier. So we can just, for ACPS, total up all the high school and compare it. So at Westboro, with a total of 13 mental health staff exclusive to the high school, the only high school, the whole school district's budget was $63.5 million. That leaves us with a ratio of like 1 mental health staff for high schoolers per $4.9 million for the whole district. So let's compare that to ACPS though. ACPS had a total of 20 exclusive mental health staff for all of their high schools combined. And the whole school district had a budget of $290 million. So that means there's 1 mental health staff for every $14.5 million in funds. So just to restate it more clearly, ACPS has about 150% of Westboro's mental health staff for high schoolers, but 450% of Westboro's total budget. Notice the discrepancy? Despite having a fine budget, ACPS is just not allocating enough to their mental health services. Eastside High School, for example, they have 1,180 high school students, but they only have 1 guidance counselor. That just doesn't make sense. So if they're not spending it on mental health support, what is the school board of Alachua County spending their money on? I say this genuinely. I don't know. And I tried to find out. An important thing in this all is ESSER funds. During the pandemic, both Trump and Biden released federal funding packages to schools to give more funding to help with COVID adjustments. ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 were about adjusting to COVID as a whole, whereas ESSER 3 was more specifically about adjusting kids to going back into the classroom and their mental and emotional needs, and academics. But like more focus on emotional, or at least more focus compared to the previous ESSERs. Now, all the ESSER packages have built-in expiration dates, so that if the money isn't spent by that amount of time, then it's no longer available to be spent. ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 have already expired, whereas ESSER 3 expires sometime in 2024. So how has the Alachua County Public Schools been spending their ESSER funds? Because they got a good chunk of ESSER funds. Well, conveniently, they have a website available that shows you exactly how much they've been spending. Oh. This page is a good bit buggy, and frequently the numbers will fuck up and not be accurate and like not match each other, which is whatever. I'll get to that. But, you know, they have listed out some different ideas and like goals for different things to spend mental health funding on. And that can't be buggy with numbers, right? So let's just look at some of those. Okay. $1.1 million for mental health PD, which they don't explain what that is. $250,000 for a mental health app that hasn't been mentioned at all by the district in any other plans or press releases or anything. $176,000 for a records keeping platform. $74,000 for transportation as mental health support. $42,000 for tardy kiosks. $70,000 for substitutes. $15,000 for Laserphage workflow software, which is a business workflow optimizer, not mental health support. $35,000 for Adobe Pro licenses, and then $40,000 for inspirational speakers. What they list the most spending on is family liaison specialists, which is fine, but I personally think that money should be spent elsewhere, like getting more guidance counselors or other staff members like social workers or school psychologists. Oh wait, hey, social workers. They have that listed as something on here, right? That's the number 2 thing they want to spend their money on. None of the money has been spent so far. And the description also says how their starting baseline is only 20. Who is going to break it that they now have less than 20? This ESSER page is very buggy. I tried doing it for a lot of research, but the numbers are consistently inconsistent, which isn't great for financial transparency. What is also important to note, though, is that this page hasn't been updated since January 2023. The whole year it has taken me to make this video, this page has not been updated. Considering that these are public institutions where financial transparency matters, and that these funding packages do have built-in time limits on them and expiration dates, where if they don't spend that money, then it goes poof, I kind of want to know what's happening with the money. Because I hate to be that guy, but it is like taxpayer money and all. That is just, who knows how it's being spent. And forgive me, but I want this to be spent on proper mental health services, not fucking inspirational speakers, not $70 to transportation. Yeah, transportation's good, but why is that mental health services? Also, I can't get over $40,000 for inspirational speakers. That's ridiculous. Come the fuck on. God. And then also, on top of that, the school district presented a plan in April 2021 of how they were planning on spending their ESSER 2 funding. And in it, there was an implication that student and employee mental health would make up a third of their spending. So a third, that's like 14% off of what it actually ended up being. So they were just lying, I guess. You're misleading everyone or making false promises. For the 2022 to 2023 school year, the Alachua County School Board was given $1.4 million in state funding called FEFP funding, specifically earmarked for mental health services. In the budget from that school year, it says how this money was specifically earmarked for mental health services. And because this was being directly given to them by the state rather than federally in some goofy thing like ESSER, it therefore was directly part of the school's budget. $1.4 million in the school's main budget specifically for mental health services. So when I asked some professionals in the field about this, such as Dr. who's a school psychologist at the school district, she said that with that much money for mental health services, ACPS could have easily gotten a school psychologist in every single school. But they didn't, which we know isn't the case, since there is only 6 in the whole district. What she did tell me, though, is that what schools will sometimes do is they will take this funding, this like FEFP funding, and convert it, rather than being specialized for mental health services or whatever else, they'll just convert it into the general fund, meaning it can be spent on whatever. It loses the earmark. And when looking into it more, yep, that's exactly what happened. So this was all talking about the 2022 to 2023 budget, but it becomes even more apparent in looking at the 2023 to 2024 budget. Because in that, the district says how they got FEFP funds from the state specifically for mental health services, and then they never mention it again in the whole budget sheet. It's just FEFP funds, which then get converted and go into other pools besides mental health services. But then after that, they never mention mental health services ever again. They don't even say how much it was. But considering the year prior was 1.4 million, I can only imagine how much. So they never say how much goes to mental health. They never even say mental health again. The money, specifically for that, it's just gone. That was a lot of jargon there. So let's recap and I'll try to clarify things a bit. The Alachua County Public Schools don't have enough mental health resources. They just don't. They don't have enough guidance counselors. They don't have enough social workers. They don't have enough school psychologists. They don't have a lot of other programs. They list out possible things and don't have them. However, this is not an issue of not getting enough funding, because compared to a lot of other schools, they are getting enough funding for more mental health services. The issue is just that they're not allocating the money for it. And when you take a look under the hood of everything, there's just a lot of issues and discrepancies in the numbers. Things aren't transparent. Things are outdated. Funding numbers are hidden from public view. So despite the fact that they are getting millions of dollars that are earmarked specifically for mental health services, that money is then converted into a general fund, which then the ACPS administrators can spend on whatever the hell they want. And they do spend it on whatever the hell they want. And clearly, that isn't actual mental health support for the kids here. And despite there being active efforts from students like yours truly to have fun times, make fun events, and promote mental health support, they just get shut down. Also, I want to say, while researching this all and filling out the story and everything, I was doing a number of Freedom of Information Act requests, and I can tell they're giving me limited results back. They're not giving me all the information that I am requesting, despite them kind of legally needing to do so, which is suspicious and tells me that something is not being fully transparent. Something is being hidden here. And I know that because for some of the Information Act requests, I am involved in them. I did Information Act requests about like the Don't Say Gay videos or the charity fundraiser, and I get incredibly limited results back. Things that I know should be included aren't included, which to me indicates that something is being hidden, or at least something is not being as transparent as it should be. Something about this all just doesn't sit right with me, because to me, it seems like there are millions of dollars that are supposed to be spent on mental health services. But instead, the school district, which has historically continued ludicrous things like segregation and free speech censorship, is able to do whatever it wants with the money and pocket it for itself. Millions of dollars down the drain.